What is going on, everyone? Welcome to this episode of Lightroom Everywhere Live. I am very thankful to have you here. My name is Brian Matiash. I'm the creator of Lightroom Everywhere, which is a video course. It is a newsletter, and it is this live stream here. So I am excited for today's episode because this is without a doubt one of the most talked about topics in the kind of world of digital photography, especially with people who are using Lightroom. And that is specifically what's going on with Lightroom and Lightroom Classic. Now, there is no shortage of content that you can find on my website. You can find it throughout YouTube and the internet where people are talking about this. And this all kind of, I think, really happened, this kind of like consternation, so to speak. I think I'm partly to blame here, but I'm also going to put some of the blame on my buddy Matt Klaskowski. So Matt's like one of my best friends, and he has a podcast called the Photography Frame of Mind podcast. And months ago, one of his first episodes, we were talking about Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, and he asked me what my predictions were in terms of when I think or if Adobe will sunset Lightroom Classic. And I said within 5 years. And I think Matt said somewhere between 7 and 10 years. He was a bit more conservative. And that started a whole thing. So one of the things that I did to help address this was I built that course, Lightroom Everywhere, which I'll talk about later. And I've just been creating content all over the place, going on different people's podcasts and just kind of talking about the reality of Lightroom, because it's really not as scary as some people think. So yeah, I'm right here. This comment right here is absolutely 100% correct. And we'll talk about that, the local tab. The local tab changed everything. And I just think that it set the pace in the course, or the pace of my predictions. So with that, I've got this nifty little set of slides here, just to kind of give you an outline of what we're going to talk about here. And before anything else, actually, if you've got questions, or you have a comment, use the live chat section to ask your questions. I'll save most of them for the end. I already see a few really good ones, and thank you for that. But I have some stuff planned. The reason why I'm actually a much bigger fan of doing these lives with you, as opposed to, I could have easily just created a video, like a video on demand. I like this informal nature. I mean, we are now officially 1/12 of the way through 2024. Today is February 1st. It's one of those things where normally when I do videos, I try to hide all forms of date and time to make it evergreen. This is fun. So please, I hope you guys have fun with this too. So let's go back to this. First thing I want to talk about, and I'll start with, I'm going to show you the outline first, and then I'll talk to you about this stuff. Your needs versus my needs. This is a really big thing, and this is more appropriate. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because as an educator who puts himself out there with my workflow and my recommendations, I obviously have certain needs, and it's understandable that those needs may not always coincide with what your needs are. The other thing is I want to show you and talk to you about the differences between Lightroom and Lightroom Classic that matter most. And you'll see how I put that gigantic, super fat font for most photographers, because that's the other thing. Too often, not even too often, but often enough, I've gotten messages, sometimes kind of nasty, kind of, a little edgy, a little spicy, from people who are like, well, I have these needs, and therefore Lightroom is useless for everybody. Well, that's not really the case. Lightroom is actually insanely powerful. After that, what I want to do is I want to show you like what it means if you're taking baby steps when moving from Lightroom Classic to Lightroom. Now, I see here in the comments, I see several people who I know for a fact have already completed my Lightroom Everywhere course. So these are people who are already just, in it, and they either have made the full switch over, or they are in the process of making the switch over, or they figured out a way to use both Lightroom and Lightroom Classic. So I'm going to show you kind of just some of the ways that it might make it easier for you, because ultimately the first step that you should really take is starting to use Lightroom. And here, again, this is with the local tab is how you will do that without having to really commit yourself. Then we'll do Q&A. This is where I think we'll go through some of these questions and answers, unless it makes sense during the presentation. And then there's just a little special bonus for if you don't currently own Lightroom everywhere. I just wanted to offer something special. So with that, let's start with. Let me actually go really quickly. Let's start with your needs versus my needs. And I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but I think it's important. I remember when I went on Matt's podcast and I talked about how I think Lightroom will be deprecated within 5 years. Now, let me just put this out there. I'm not employed by Adobe. I work with Adobe on stuff, but there is nothing. I have no inside information. Anything I do know, I'd be under NDA, so I couldn't tell you. I'm just kind of going off of. I've worked in the software industry for many years. I've worked at Google, I've worked at Sony, I've worked at Wacom, I've worked at Topaz Labs, I've worked at On1, and I did contract work with Skylum. So I've hit a lot of the places. I understand how companies work. And when I said that Lightroom was probably going to come to an end within 5 years, that was not based off of some emotion or some random, that was like based off of data. If I worked at Adobe and I was in some sort of strategy role, and I know what's involved in terms of manning 2 teams, Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, all the teams that are involved there and how much that costs, never mind the branding confusion, I would go for the one that I know is the one that is going to take me into the future, which is Lightroom, sometimes called Lightroom Cloud. And that's the branding confusions. People don't understand. I call it Lightroom because that's what it's called. There's Lightroom Desktop and Lightroom Mobile. And then there's Lightroom Classic. So my needs are, I want to be able to manage, edit, and share my photos. I don't need the other stuff, slideshow, or, I mean, I would like the map, but it's not something that is critical. I certainly don't need book. I don't need web. So that doesn't mean that you don't need those things. And sometimes I think I come across as a bit casual about that. And if I do, I apologize, because I'm not trying to make it seem like that. I'm just expressing what my needs are. But what I challenge photographers with is you need to edit your photos. You need to manage your photos, organize them. You need to edit them, and you need to share them. So if you have all those things, or for the most part you have those things in Lightroom, I don't understand why you wouldn't even be willing to try it. So that's, my needs versus your needs. I understand that some people, they need extended IPTC metadata information. Totally get that. But most people don't. And you cannot build a business for the vocal minority. If you want proof of that, you should go to Petapixel about 3 days ago. And I do not take any sort of joy in this at all. But they reported that Capture One was just laying off a significant amount of their staff. They're doing a restructuring. I'm not saying that it's because they catered towards a specific type of people, but you need to do what you have to do as a business to cater to the most viable, the largest user base. So enough about that's kind of business 101. So let's actually talk and look at the differences between Lightroom and Lightroom Classic that matter to most photographers. So let's go to the desktop here. And so here you've got my desktop. This is Lightroom, and then this is Lightroom Classic. And currently both versions of Lightroom are accessing the same folder on my desktop with the photos. So there are 8 photos over here. And then I'll make these thumbnails a little bit smaller so you can see them. There, 8 photos over here. So when we talk about, again, we're at the second bullet point, the difference between Lightroom and Lightroom Classic that matters to most photographers. I would say probably one of the biggest ones, because I'm not going to pretend like there are things missing in Lightroom that I really wish we had. I'm not going to say that we are 100% good to go. I'd say we're 85%, 90% good to go. There are a few things that I think once they get added will be huge. So the biggest one by far, I think one of the biggest ones, is the inability to send an image to a third-party plugin. And I think I saw here, Kirk asked this right there. Can you use third-party plugins on Lightroom or Lightroom Mobile like you can on Lightroom Classic? And the answer is no-ish. So here's what I mean. Let's say I want to take this photo. This is an iPhone XS photo. It is a DNG. So this is Apple's equivalent to a RAW. And if I zoom in, you can see that there is noise. Hopefully you can see that here through the live stream, but trust me, there's noise in the sky. If I want to use, say, a third-party app like Topaz Photo AI or Topaz Denoise, all I need to do from Lightroom Classic is right-click, go to Edit In, and then you can see here, we have all of these third parties. So there's Topaz Photo AI, Luminar Neo, the On1 apps, and Photoshop. So that's basically a streamlined way to get a photo from Lightroom Classic to an app outside of the Adobe ecosystem. If we go to Lightroom here, and let me open up the same photo, and you can see here, same thing, got noise. I'll actually zoom in a little bit more so you can see that. There is no way currently, regardless of local or cloud, to send a photo to a third-party app, with the exception of Photoshop. So you could argue that while you can't send a photo directly to a third-party app, you can access it. So if I take this photo and I click Edit in Photoshop, it's going to load Photoshop here. You can see on the top here, basically what it's doing is it's creating a TIFF file, a temporary TIFF file. Let me bring this over here. Okay, so this is Photoshop. Now, with this image in Photoshop, what I can do is sorry, let me get rid of my face over here. I can say duplicate this layer, and then I can go to Filter, go to Topaz Labs, and I can send it to Topaz Photo AI. Or if I wanted to upscale it in gigapixel, I can go to File, and then Automate, and then select gigapixel over here. So the point is that I can technically within the confines of, that's not what I wanted, this one right here. Within the confines of Lightroom and Photoshop, you can access a third-party app, but that's a huge asterisk. That's kind of like, you know, Barry Bonds having the home run record. You have to put an asterisk there because let's say you're a Lightroom only subscriber. So Adobe has a $10 plan that gives you 1 terabyte, but you only have access to this version of Lightroom and Lightroom Mobile. You do not have access to Lightroom Classic, and you don't have access to Photoshop. In that case, no, there is no way to send an image from Lightroom to a third-party app, with the exception of exporting the photo from Lightroom to your computer, where, you know, on your desktop, and then opening that in the standalone app. So that is probably one of the biggest things that I would say is missing from Lightroom. Now, I'm going to go into another thing here, another item that's missing, and actually it comes from my man, Ron Polk. Ron is one of my favorite people. He's just a great guy, always positive, talk all the time. And he's asking, does Lightroom have publish services? So this is one of those perfect examples of your needs versus my needs. I'll tell you straight up, I don't use publish services. Never really have. I played around with using it to publish to Adobe stock from Lightroom Classic, but let me show you what we do have here. So in Lightroom, it's cloud only. So we don't have local yet. We have cloud, and under cloud, if you go to all photos and you expand here, you'll see there's this section here called connections. And if you click on the plus icon here, these are currently the connections that are integrated with Lightroom. You've got Adobe Portfolio, which is different than Adobe Stock. You've got SmugMug, and then like Blurb, which is what I would argue you could use because there is no book module, and White House Custom Color and stuff like this. So I don't recall any new connections being added to Lightroom in a very long time. So I don't know how functional it is. So this is something also, like Ron is saying, that is kind of missing. Yes, I would like actually to have an Adobe stock connection. That would be cool. I will say though that these connections are very, very lightweight. So I really wouldn't, I wouldn't put much in it. But if connections is a very important thing for you, then, you know, that I get it. Just because some people rely on that to send it, you know, you can send to SmugMug, for example, or to Flickr, or to some other social network. For me, I'd rather just export the photos and manage it that way. And I'm not just saying that because I don't have the functionality. I've never really, that's why I think it might have been easier for me when I made my switch from Lightroom to Lightroom Classic, because I said this before, manage, edit, and share. Those are the things that I pretty much always needed the Lightroom for, or Lightroom Classic. And the Lightroom gives me all of that. And you can argue, this is what baffles me. I would argue that the most important thing that a photographer could want out of an app like Lightroom is a powerful set of editing tools. Like, okay, you want to organize your photos in a certain way, and we'll talk about that in terms of like smart collection and stuff and keywords. You want to organize your stuff a certain way. You can get your organization down pretty good in Lightroom, but the editing is outstanding. There's only one thing that I can think of in Lightroom Classic, and it was actually something that Glenn Dewis brought up to me. That's in Lightroom Classic that I never even noticed in Lightroom, and it's so small. I don't know that anyone. I'll show it to you right now. In fact, if I can even find it. It's under, if I take this, go into the develop module here, and I go to color grading, there is like this, let me see. There's like some ability to save a swatch. I don't even remember where it is. Oh, this right here. Like you can basically save this swatch and have a custom graded swatch. Okay, like that's fine, that's cool, but it's not, I don't normally color grade, one, and two, I don't always use the exact same hue, saturation, and luminance values. So if you go to the editing panel here, and we go to color grading, and we go here, you can see that we have the same hue and saturation controls here, as well as blending and balance, but there is no swatch to save. You know, you can, I'll zoom in here so you can see. There's really not much there compared to here. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that is the biggest deal, but I don't know. That's one of the things that I noticed about the difference between them. And so you can see here we have, I mean, like I said, we've got hue and saturation. Hue is the color, saturation is basically the distance from the middle of the wheel to the outer ring of the wheel. And then you've got your illuminance right here. So that's kind of basically what I would do, or what I would say in terms of, excuse me. I don't want to go to that camera, that view. I want to go to this view. That's what I would say is one of the things that, oops, sorry guys. What I would say is one of the bigger differences that I can find between the editing modules. And my point there is, if you have what I would argue is the most important thing, which is editing, what is holding you back from at least trying it out? It really is my question to you. So the other thing for me, actually, let me undo that. The other thing for me is, personally, my needs versus your needs. One of the things that I know for a fact, and I agree with this, that I wish we had, I'm not going to even say our collections. I'm going to say our smart collections. So what's a smart collection? A smart collection is basically a collection that dynamically updates based on criteria that you specify. So I can say, I want this smart collection to always show me photos that are 3 stars or greater, always. And at any time throughout the catalog, if I mark a photo with 3 stars, it'll be added dynamically to that collection, and I can refine it. I could say, not only do I want it to be 3 stars, but I want it to be yellow as well. I want it to have a yellow label color. And I also want it to have a pick flag, which is flagged. So you can see how this can be very powerful. But that is not currently in Lightroom. Collections are the equivalent, or albums in Lightroom, I would say, are the equivalent to collections in Lightroom Classic. A collection is just basically a folder that you can add photos to from different folders. And you can have collections within collection sets. So a collection set would be something like a folder, and then under it would be an album. So let me show you here under local. So you can have your collection set here and then have multiple collections under it. And so I do think that would be really nice to have in Lightroom, some sort of smart collection. But let me kind of show you what I would like to see. So I'm going to go here to my all photos view. You can see here, I've got pretty much my entire library from 2010 through today. I have them in Lightroom in the cloud. Let's say I go here to AI here, and I'm going to type in, oh, you see, this happens sometimes. I have to quit out of Lightroom. Oh yeah, actually, let me close this. Let me quit out of Photoshop here. Sometimes that I see this happen where I go to type in the search box. I don't know if other people have experienced this, but if one of here's the version of smart collections that I would love to see. And that is if I go into Lightroom, and I would argue that this is actually let me also reduce the resolution, because I can see here that it went back to, there we go. It'll just make it easier for you guys to see here. One of the best parts about Lightroom is that you can use AI to search for photos. So I typed in the word waterfall, and if I go to the grid view here, Lightroom has identified all the photos in my entire library of waterfalls. I didn't tag any of these. I didn't do anything. So what I would love to be able to do is create a smart album here and say, show me all photos of waterfalls. I don't have to tag them. I don't have to do anything. And as I add photos of waterfalls to my cloud library, that album would update with new waterfall photos. To me, that would be awesome. And of course, it would be cool to have just regular smart collections or smart albums. I would, show me all photos with 4 stars. Currently, that's this album here for me, but I have to manually add those photos. And so what I do is I right-click on that. I set it as the target album, so that anytime I finish editing a photo, I press the number 4 to give it 4 stars, and then I press T to bring it to the target album here. So I would love to see that. The other thing that I would love to have is the map module. Now, I don't think I have any photos here that are tagged, but and actually it's just showing me like a giant white screen. So point is, I would like to have the ability to see all of the photos in my entire library in a map view. But even with that, it's really not that bad, because if I go to info view, Lightroom has, even Lightroom local has basic geodata information. So as long as the photo has some sort of either GPS coordinates, or you can type in the city and state and country, then you have at least that information. And if you click on this map, it'll open it up in a web browser, I think to Google Maps. So there's that. So I would say, actually, I just saw Ron bring something about collections that I want to see. Collections in Lightroom Classic sync to Lightroom Mobile, but Smart Collections do not sync, and that is correct. Basically, what Ron is saying is that in Lightroom Classic here, you can sync collections, like dumb collections, regular collections, to Lightroom, but Smart Collections will not. Also, if you are syncing from Lightroom Classic to the cloud, you are only syncing smart previews. You are not syncing full resolution images. And that to me is one of the best parts about using Lightroom, is your original files are backed up to the cloud and they are available and accessible on all of your devices. That to me is huge. So with that, I mentioned here, those are kind of the things I would say for most photographers. You could argue, guys, like I know some people, if you go to say you go here, for example, to export. Oh, I think I did. There. I think I sent this to Photoshop by accident. I always get confused between Command E and Shift Command E. So I'm going to quit this here and go back to the export window. That's another reason actually why I like Live is it gives me the opportunity to show you things like legitimately kind of how things happen, like, something crashes or it's on a different screen. That's kind of why I like the live stuff. It actually keeps me on my toes. So what I was saying here was, if you are in Lightroom Classic, you do have the ability to, there we go. You do have a lot more kind of robust exporting controls. Like I will totally own up to that. Like you have the ability to really fine tune a lot of things. And you can also save those as export presets. With Lightroom, let me move this Lightroom over here. You don't. With Lightroom, you basically have these presets that Adobe provides you. And then you also have these custom settings. And you can see here that the custom settings are, you have what you need, but it would be cool to be able to save these as presets. And you can see here, there's a preset drop down right here. And I always kind of wish every time a new update to Lightroom is released, I kind of wish that there would be a little thing that says save preset. But I can tell you that it has never prevented me from doing what I need to do. So, I think that, yes, there are some, well, you have to also understand and remember Lightroom Classic, I think, is about 10 years older. It has a 10-year runway over Lightroom. Lightroom Classic was released in 2007 and Lightroom was released in 2017. Yeah, like in the 5 years since, 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20. So, almost, oh wow, yeah, it's been several years now. If you were to remember what Lightroom version 1.0 was like, they've added, I give so much credit to the Adobe team for what they did. So let's go here. Now what I want to do is kind of help people who are using Lightroom Classic who are kind of I think maybe like if you're curious about it, you maybe want to give it a shot. I'm going to show you how you can work with Lightroom and Lightroom Classic. So I have on my desktop here a folder. Oh, you don't? Yeah, I have the option to. I was like, where's my folder? There's a folder right here, and you can see the contents of it right here. There are 8 photos, 4 DNGs, 2 JPEGs, and 2 RAW files. And if I go to Lightroom Classic, you can see there is the photos folder on my desktop, and it has those 8 photos. Same thing on Lightroom. You have the local browse. Basically, the local browse is the equivalent of Adobe Bridge in Lightroom. It is a fully fledged file browser with the ability to show you images and allow you to access pretty much the entire editing suite for the images. So like you can fully just edit what you need. And you can see here, you have pretty much the exact same tools that you have in Lightroom Classic. The key difference is before this local tab existed, we only had cloud. And if you imported a photo into Lightroom, it would automatically sync to the cloud, and that would go against your cloud storage quota. And a lot of Lightroom Classic people were really they balked at that, because I kind of understand. Like, you are paying for a certain amount of storage, and there's just a lot to it in terms of having to upload your raw files. And I think a lot of Lightroom Classic users just wanted the ability to wanted more control. They wanted to say, I want these photos to go to the cloud, and I want these photos just on my computer. And so that's what local does. And I would argue that local is the first nail in Lightroom Classic's coffin. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is, because you can access all of Lightroom's tools with one key difference, and that is no catalogs. So my photos are here on the desktop. Pretend like this is your entire photo library and you're accessing your photos. So they're all here on the desktop. I don't have to deal with a catalog or anything like that. But you might be wondering, well, how does it work then? If I make an edit, how does it work? Like, let's say I'm in Classic. Let's say this is this photo right here. Let's work with this photo. It's a JPEG. You can see, oh no, wait, let me go to grid view. No, it's a JPEG here. My computer is really starting to lag, which is kind of crazy because this is a pretty powerful M2 Max. But it's a JPEG, and you can see if we go here, let's open the same image, same exact image. And you're wondering, well, okay, how can I let's say I go into the develop module here, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'll click on auto. I'm going to go press W to go to the white balance picker, and I'm going to get a custom white balance. And so I make these edits here. Now, I have the edits here in Classic, but if I go into Lightroom, they're not here. Why? Or if I go into Finder, the edits are not in Finder. And so this is kind of what I want to show you in terms of if you want to have a hybrid workflow. I don't advocate for this. I don't teach it in my course, but I understand that there are people who want to know how to use it. What you would do is you would take this photo in the library module. Let me bring this down here. In the library module, not in develop, you'd go into metadata, and then you'd go and you'd select save metadata to file. And so what will happen is Lightroom will write that information into the JPEG. And if we go to the grid view here, voila, I don't know if you caught that, but there is the image. There are the edits. You can see here, I have my custom white balance that I got, and all the edits are here. So if you want to experiment with Lightroom, you want to familiarize yourself with, say, the editing module, that's one of the ways you can do it. And I wanted to start with JPEG. Now, I also want to show you what happens if you are working with a JPEG, for example, in Lightroom. So let's go here. Now I'm going to work with this image. I'm going to click on this image here. And same thing as before, I'm going to click on auto. I'm going to select a custom white balance, and I'm going to apply an S-curve to add some contrast. And I'm going to desaturate that contrast. All right, so I have the edited JPEG here. If I go into Lightroom, nothing, or Lightroom Classic rather, nothing has changed, right? And so this will not, nothing will happen until you do one of two things. Either you press the G key to go to the grid view, or you press the left or right arrow key to go to another image. And so what that does is when you press the G key or a left or right arrow key, it indicates to Lightroom that the editing session has completed. And for a JPEG, it writes the editing information into the header of the JPEG. So if I go into Lightroom Classic here, you'll see nothing has happened aside from this little icon right there. Let me zoom in. You see that little icon right there? That indicates that there is a change to the metadata of the image. And so when you click on it, Lightroom's like, okay, we see that this image actually is different than what we know, than what we have in our catalog, which is critical. What do you want to do? Do you want to overwrite the metadata with what we have, with what Lightroom Classic has? Or do you want to take what is in the image, which is from Lightroom, and overwrite it? Well, we want this one. So I'm going to click on this, and then boom, we now have the full editing history here, or the editing state rather, of the image. And so this is how you would work between Lightroom and Lightroom Classic with a JPEG, for example. We can do the same thing with a RAW. So let's go ahead here, and I'm going to start in with the Lightroom Classic here. Same thing. Here's a Sony RAW file. Let's go to develop, and I'm just going to get a custom white balance, and let's just, I don't know. I'm just kind of messing around here just so that we can make some, actually, I'm just going to click on black and white. So we're going to create a monochrome photo. So if I go to the grid view here, you'll see that in Lightroom Classic, the RAW file is there. But if I go into Lightroom, this image here, it still shows the original photo. Oh no, I'm sorry, it was this one. But same thing, we're still working with the original photo. And so in order to get those changes, you have to do, again, the same thing I showed you. In Lightroom, you'll go into the library module, and you can do this for all your photos. You don't have to do this for one at a time, but you select the photos that you've edited, you go to metadata, and then you select save metadata to file. Now, when I go here into Lightroom, there. Okay, so you see sometimes that you have to kind of toggle, but there the information, the updated information, you can see that the profile was changed, and then all of the editing, the sliders that I made edits to were here. So I want to illustrate to you that that actually works, where you can make edits in Lightroom Classic and have them appear in Lightroom so long as you save the metadata to the file. Now, there is this photo here. So if I go to the info view, you can see the file name is MAT003. So that is right here, this RAW file. Notice how it's just the RAW file. There's nothing else to it. Watch what happens when I go into, so now we're in Lightroom. I'm going to the edit panel here, and same thing as before. I'm just going to go ahead and just make a few edits to the photo. Now, if I go to the desktop here, you see how there's nothing over here? And that's because, remember, with Lightroom, when you're working in local, nothing gets saved to the file until you either press G or you arrow over to another image. And that indicates the end of the edit session. And so you can see now we have that, the XMP file, which has the edit information stored in the sidecar. Now here's the advantage with working in Lightroom Local versus Lightroom Classic. With Lightroom Classic, you need to do basically you need to take your catalog with you. You need to have your catalog if you want to have your edit history. And so that can be dicey because I've actually seen people where their catalogs have gotten corrupted. Also, it's not easy managing a catalog on multiple computers. In fact, I recommend not doing that. If you have a giant hard drive in your computer and you want to store like your laptop and you want to travel with all that, fine. But that's, to me, one of the biggest benefits of leaving Lightroom Classic is never having to worry about catalogs. And so what I mean by that is with Lightroom, everything you do under the local tab is stored either in a sidecar file, in the DNG itself, or in the header of a JPEG or any other file format right away. So I don't need a catalog. I can take this folder here. I can send this folder or any of these files to anyone in the world who uses Lightroom, this version of Lightroom. They can go into local, they can browse to that, and they will have all of the edit history. I don't have to send them a catalog. I don't have to do anything like that. All I need to do is send them the file. And that makes traveling significantly easier. And to me, that is one of the best, one of the best ways to kind of become comfortable with using Lightroom, because you can browse, like if I wanted to, with Lightroom here, I can browse this. So again, this is local. I'm going to go to this is my external hard drive that has my entire life of photos. So I'm going to go here. I'll go to Lightroom. Let's go to like the legacy photo backup. I can go to 2009. I can select any of these folders here. Go to the grid view. And these are photos that are in Lightroom Classic, or they would be in your Lightroom Classic catalog, but I can just browse to them. I can edit any one of these. And when I press G, those edits will be saved to the file. And basically it doesn't affect anything. It's like, it really is one of the cleanest experiences that I've seen in terms of editing, because it just gets rid of the catalog, and all you're really doing is using Lightroom as a file browser to find the photo, edit it, and export it. And that's the other thing that I want, the point that I want to make is with these photos. So actually, like for example, this, I mentioned how this is a noisy DNG. This is a noisy raw file from my iPhone. In terms of all the tools that I have access to, I mean, I can right click here. I can go to enhance. Because this is a Bayer DNG file, I can actually use the amazing AI denoise. You can see here how much cleaner it is with Lightroom. And this is with local. Remember, these are not synced to the cloud. If these were, say, 3 auto exposure bracketed images, I can right click, go to photo merge, and I can merge them to HDR. Or if they were a pano, I can pano merge them. And then again, you have access to the entire editing suite. One of the things I will say that's a lot of people don't realize, especially if they use the color calibration panel, which is typically at the very bottom of the develop module, this right here. A lot of people don't realize that it's actually in the Lightroom because it's hidden by default. So you see this little ellipse over here. If you click on it, you'll see there is show color calibration. Usually that is unchecked. So you want to check that, and then that will appear here. And so you do have the color calibration tools here. And then you have everything else. So again, to me, that is like one of the best, it's one of the best ways to get familiar with Lightroom. And the reason why I spent so much time showing you how photos work between Lightroom Classic and Lightroom is because it's important to understand that technically, yes, you can work between both of the apps, and you don't have to sync. That's, I think, the point that I didn't make strong enough is that with Lightroom Classic, you still have all of your photos on your computer. You can edit them. And in Lightroom here, you have those same photos with those same edits. Not a single one of them has been synced to the cloud. If you want to sync a photo or a group of photos or a folder, you can just select the photos here, and then there's this button here called Copy to Cloud. Or if you want the whole folder, you can just select, basically what I did was I clicked on this little ellipse over here and copy to cloud. So that's there. And John, I see your question, and I see the other questions as well. So I'm going to get to them in a minute. Here's one thing, and I'm going to bring this up, one thing that I really do wish, and I think we will get this because it just doesn't make sense not to. So in the Lightroom Classic, you see basically the hierarchy is you've got desktop, and then you've got photos under it as a subfolder. So if I click on desktop, I will see the contents of everything of every subfolder under it. So you can see we have the photos folder, and so I can see them here. Same thing if I click on photos. Unfortunately, that is currently not the case. I have no idea if it's coming. I just feel like this is something that is obvious that should come. But you see, if I click on desktop, this is not a good experience. This needs to be fixed because there's no reason that Lightroom shouldn't be like, oh, wait, there's a subfolder here with photos. Let me show them to you. Basically, it requires you, if you have multiple subfolders, imagine if I had 5 subfolders and I just wanted to browse through all of them. I can't do that unless I moved all of those photos from the subfolders into one. And that's not a good experience. So I would have to think that this will come eventually. But for now, I just want to give you a heads up that this currently doesn't. This is not a feature. So we're at that Q&A time. And so I want to go through the questions here. So I'm just going to kind of go through and see what I have. So I see that there's a question earlier on from Glenn here in terms of keywording. Would like to see general keyword strategy and automations to help go back and keyword photos. So straight up, talk to my buddy Ron Paulk. He's one of the people here. Ron is the keyword king. I've never keyworded. I don't keyword. I'm not saying that this is the whole my needs versus your needs. Do you want to know why I don't keyword? I showed it to you earlier, but basically I don't keyword because I can go here and I could say, I don't know, bird. Oh, you see, this happens. You see, I don't know why this, I'm going to have to report this as a bug. Sometimes when I go to type something, let me try a different folder. So let me type, yeah, for some reason it's not working. So I'm going to quit Lightroom. Let's just see if this is going to be the same issue that I had before. But basically what I want to do, okay, good. We should be okay this time. Man, that teleprompter really threw things for a loop. But to go back, Glenn, I can go here and I can type in bird and it'll show me all photos that have birds in them. And that's good enough for me. Like that's good enough for me. If I wanted to, I can go into a photo here because Lightroom does have keyword support. It's right, this icon right here. I can keyword things as I see fit or as I need it. But using AI to find photos has been really, really great for me. So yeah, there's that. Let's go back here. Sean's asking, any word on when or if Lightroom will allow stacking of auto exposure bracketed images, and adding any of the other functions that's missing compared to Lightroom Classic. So I don't know what other functions you're talking about. In terms of the auto exposure bracket stacking, that's there. You can stack photos. If I select these photos here and I right click and I go to group and stack, I can stack them. They'll be stacked over here. And same thing if I select multiple, I don't know if it's going to work, but if I were to go to photo merge and go to HDR merge, you can see over here, there is this option to stack as part of the HDR or pano merge. So that functionality is there. What you might be asking, which would be valid, I kind of would like to see this as well, although this is a very niche feature. You can stack in Lightroom Classic, you can stack images based on a time duration. So you could say, if I remember correctly, something like stack photos that if they were taken within half a second of each other. And so that makes stacking, if you do a lot of bracketing for HDR, that kind of makes it easier. It's not perfect. I've actually been bitten in the butt with that before. So, but there is stacking. So there's that. Mike's always like one of the just nicest people. I thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. See, Tim, I know Tim, Tim's one of those really kind of engaged students in Lightroom everywhere. And this is the kind of stuff, Tim is not alone. I've heard from many people who have made the switch, because once you kind of really have your kind of come to Jesus moment in terms of what do you really need, plus what the benefits are, because I feel like I spent a lot of time not really showing you the benefits. To me, being able to access my photos, my entire library on this thing, on my iPad, on my computer, not just my photos, but the edits, the organizational structure. I can take photos taken with my iPhone and get them in there. Do you know how many times I go out on a shoot with just my iPhone? And then when I'm done, right before I start driving home, I import everything into Lightroom. By the time I get home, they're already on my desktop. They're backed up. And then speaking of backup, I don't need to worry. All my photos are backed up in the Adobe Cloud. So to me, that's huge. It might not be big for you. You might say, hey, I've got 40 terabytes of photos. That's just not feasible. I get it. Totally get that. Use local. You can still get all the benefits of Lightroom, including choosing exactly which photos to store to the cloud. It's all there. And you don't need to ever worry about a catalog again. So, yeah, I think it's less than 5 years, probably a lot less. I don't know, but I don't think you're far off base. So, what John is saying, that was the argument for most Lightroom people in terms of the cost. Because remember, you have to remember this. The cost, there is no cost. If you are a Lightroom Classic user, that means you're paying for odds are you're paying for the photography plan. That means you have Lightroom. You don't pay extra for that. Now you determine, depending on the plan you have, you might have 100 gigabytes, I think, or a terabyte. So your storage is different. But like I said, there's nothing stopping you from loading the Creative Cloud app, installing Lightroom, and using the local browse to familiarize yourself, to get comfortable with it. And to choose if there's specific folders. I know a lot of people who've taken my Lightroom Everywhere course who have decided that they're going to start with 2024. From 2024 on, they're going to start syncing to the cloud, and then they can offload photos as they start to fill up and just kind of work within that. Others have decided they're just going to pay for extra storage. And then others are like, I'm just going to use Lightroom as a local app. I'm not even going to sync anything. And the reason why I really don't recommend, and I really don't like when I see other instructors. In fact, today I saw a video of some guys basically making it seem like you can sync as much as you want to Lightroom, to cloud from Lightroom Classic without paying a penny and without taking any cloud storage. Yes, technically that's correct. But to be honest, you're syncing smart previews. So again, if you go into Classic here, you can sync collections, not smart collections, and anything in the collection will sync to the cloud, but it will sync as a smart preview. A smart preview is a lossy, compressed file. It's about 2560 pixels on the long end. It is not an uncompressed RAW. It is not the original file. So to say that you can sync, yes, but if your catalog blows up, if your hard drive at home blows up and you have no backups, those smart previews will, I mean, technically, yeah, you'll have something, but I think you'll be pretty upset if you lost all your RAW files. So to not have to worry about that is, I think, a really big thing. Let's see here. What do we have in terms of questions? Is there a minimum spec for PCs running Lightroom? The reason I ask is I can edit basics on the hard drive, but I have crop. It just distorts and no crop. I mean, Lightroom posts, or Adobe posts on their support page all their specs. And that's also a good point to bring up with if you're an iPad user. If you have an older iPad that can't run the latest iPad OS, you won't see some of the tools that newer iPads have, like some of the adaptive masking tools and stuff. So check that out. So yeah, David says here, it would be nice to create custom export presets. Seems like an easy add. Yeah, I would love to see that. I think you have to understand also that it's a resource balancing thing. There are only so many people, so many engineers and product managers and stuff. And so I'm sure Adobe knows all this stuff, or they've heard it, and it's a matter of prioritizing. So let's see here. I mean, here's another one from Alan. Like, as necessity is mother of invention, adaptation. I recently uninstalled Lightroom Classic from both my machines. I mean, that's huge. And I don't think people are, it's not like I enlisted these people to come here and say anything. These are people who have made the decision, who have made that what Lightroom offers fits within what they need. And so I'm not saying that it's for everyone, at least not yet, but it's only going to get better. You have to understand Lightroom will only get better. Here. Okay, this is a good one. Another one. One of the most underrated things is the Lightroom website. Oh, thank you so much for bringing this up. This is so true. And it doesn't get any love because I don't think it's very glamorous. But if you're in Lightroom, for example, here, and I go to share, no, where is it? Oh, no, it's under cloud. That's where it is. Under the cloud icon, so this guy right here, you'll see there is this link called Lightroom Web. If I click on this, it will take me to my entire library. This is my entire library here. But not only that, like I can go into an image. Guys, I have Lightroom in a web browser. I have Lightroom's editing panel in a web browser. And guys, I have things like adaptive masking. I mean, I have desktop grade tools in a web browser. Like, come on, guys. Like, this is insane. This is only for people who sync their images to the cloud. That's what you're seeing here. So, like, I don't know. It's such a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up because I think it's just huge. So let's see what else we have here. John's asking, does this work well when using both Mac and Windows on same files? Yeah, I mean, I don't use Windows and I don't use Android. I am Apple obsessed, but I know that there are tons of Lightroom Windows users, and the files sync just like you would expect, and they'll sync between your devices. So if you have a Mac and a PC, they'll work great. Same thing with your mobile devices. So by all means, give it a shot. Robert's asking here, so earlier when I sent an image from Lightroom to Photoshop to illustrate that's currently the only way that you can access a third-party plugin within Lightroom. P.S. why I duplicated the layer. It's just mostly, that's a force of habit. It just was ingrained in me from many years ago that by having the by duplicating the original layer, I have always that original snapshot at the bottom. And so all of my edits are made to the duplicate layer and above. That's really all there is to it. This is another, what Stuart's bringing up is another legitimate concern. He's saying that the issue I'm running into starting in 2024, my internet provider slows the upload speeds after, basically the internet provider's throttling his bandwidth after he exceeds a certain data transmission amount. So after a terabyte or 500 gigabytes, it throttles down. I hate that. I think it's super lame. I understand that many companies do it. I'll tell you what I did. Honestly, I wish I had photos. I should have taken some photos. When I was first migrating my entire Lightroom Classic catalog, like those terabytes to Lightroom, I would take my giant hard drive, it's hidden away, I don't use it anymore, my giant G Technology drive, 24 terabyte drive, with my laptop. I would go to Starbucks and I would sit there. I would find a seat. I already got to know the people. I would buy my little breakfast sandwich and my coffee, and I would sit there for a couple hours. And I would do that after, I think it was like a week and a half. Because Starbucks actually has a really good Wi-Fi. Point is, you can always do that, and it would be a lot quicker because it's not like you would necessarily be transferring or syncing an entire library. But if you have a big chunk of images and you don't want to do that, if you have a Starbucks, I mean, I would recommend obviously buy some food and a drink. Don't just leech the internet. But yeah, with that, I really hope. Let me see if there are any other questions. I don't think there are. I see Tim. Yeah, Tim is awesome. Like Tim is one of the guys in the group, in the course, who just is constantly engaging, and I love it. So I hope this. I know I threw a lot at you. Feel free, after this live stream is done, obviously the live chat is over, you can use the comment section to ask a question. I'll do my best to answer them. And just, if I'm going to leave you with anything, it's this. Just like, go here to your desktop, go to the Creative Cloud app, go to your apps, and install Lightroom. If you are a photography plan customer, you have this. You're already paying for this. Give it a shot. Like, just give it a shot. Watch this live stream again, where the section where I showed you how photos the editing changes can be not synced, but basically recognized between Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, and play around with it. Check out my YouTube channel. I have a ton of videos on editing with Lightroom. So you will not be without resources. And then, of course, if and when you're ready and you really want to understand how to use Lightroom with your desktop, with your phone, with your tablet, I hope you consider Lightroom everywhere. So with that, guys and girls, thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you on the next live stream. We're going to have fun. And let me know in the comments if you like this format. Just drop a comment. With that, I hope you enjoy your Thursday. Have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.